Well, we are in the thick of it here at Bitcoin 2022. What's your experience been like so far? Have you been to this conference before?
No, this is my first, and it is big, it is loud, and it's like thought-provoking in every which way, right? Like from open source protocols to all the way to pragmatic use cases like the ones that we talked about, Robinhood.
You've really been going to tech conferences forever. For people who don't know your background, you were at Google before, Alphabet, I guess.
Yeah.
But, you spent a long time in Silicon Valley. Is this way different than other tech conferences in the past?
That is an interesting question, Kate, because I've done Google I/O pretty much for many years, behind the scenes and presenting as well. And I have to say, two things are really different here. It feels like an intersection of finance and tech in a much more, and culture, if you will, in a much more pronounced way. And I think the second thing is there's just this back in the 90s kind of energy around like the world of possibilities, the one that at least I grew up in, Web 1 or Web 2, I guess, which is exciting to see.
Do you ever worry about a bubble? Like for people who lived through the dot-com era, the booms and busts, does this feel like deja vu in any way?
Look, do I think that there is some amount of hyperventilating and foaming at the mouth about possibilities that won't come true? The equivalent of, I don't know, I'm dating myself, but pets.com and things like that? Absolutely. But I do think that just like in Web 1 and Web 2, I happen to work at Akamai and Google, where they're foundational infrastructure and foundational products that were built to last and change the world, right? And I think it's the same thing that's going to happen. There's a few that just will change the world.
Yeah, well, I'm glad we got your take on all of that. We'll talk about Robinhood too. Is Robinhood a Web 2 or a Web 3 company?
Oh, I'm staying away from that philosophical debate, because I think the way I think about this is Robinhood is we want to bring the best of both worlds. If you look at it right now, there's two islands, right? So on one side you have the traditional financial services, traditional tech companies, safe, secure, but only for the few, if you think about the financial services. And then there's an island, the crypto island, which is lots of innovation, lots of access, and at the same time it's a wild, wild west, right? There's rug pulling, there's all sorts of you have to look over the shoulder. And for us, I think at Robinhood, we want to bring the best of both worlds. How do you get the safety, security, 24/7 support, along with innovation, along with access to many more millions of people? I think we got a good shot at it.
And you had some news today. Let's talk about that. Walk us through what Robinhood announced when it comes to Bitcoin.
We had two announcements today. One, of course, is as the community calls it, when wallets. We announced that we have 2 million plus people on the wallets waitlist that can instantly now send and receive Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies as well. And we also announced that we are supporting Lightning Network with Bitcoin. What that means is that today one of the challenges with Bitcoin is that, of course, it's a fantastic asset class as an investing asset class, but to build use cases on top of it, like the classic, you buy a cup of coffee, turn it into crypto, use crypto to buy a coffee, examples that people talk about, you can't do that without it being super slow or super expensive. So Lightning Network, what it does is actually allow us to send you and me to send and receive Bitcoin much faster and much cheaper. So we announced that as well.
You mentioned the when wallets. I guess that sort of turned into a meme, but that's become
We love the
thing.
community. We love the crypto community.
It does sort of suggest, though, that it maybe took longer than people expected. What went into the rollout, and why did that take longer than some, at least on Twitter, were expecting?
Yeah, I did. I have to say we took the time for, I would say, two reasons. One is, we have 20 million customers who are using our products, so we want to make sure that we do things in a safe and compliant and secure way. And that means we can't just turn that on, and we have to make sure that we have phased approaches, both on the operational side, security side. That's one reason. But the other reason is also that we really wanted to do this development in public. The crypto community, it's not, in that sense, I think the Web3 world is interesting in the sense that, Web 2, you kind of build the product and people use it. This is as much a co-shaping of the product along with the community. So we did this phased approach where you have a beta program. We got feedback, tons of feedback, and we actually incorporated that back into the wallet's feature and the product.
What else are you guys using that phased approach with? I know there's some products in the pipeline that you guys have mentioned, but maybe are not fully rolled out yet. I think of sort of the traditional finance side, maybe 401ks that are not as exciting for some as crypto wallets, but Well, talk about that phased approach and what else you're applying it to.
Yeah, and I think you named it. I think if you think about retirement, we also started saying, okay, within the traditional brokerage products too, retirement is a great one where, in the past, we have to do it retirement, I call it to the team the Robinhood way. What that means is how do you bring great economics to it? How do you bring a great mobile first experience to it? And how do you still have the safety and security and the 24/7 support that we offer? Which means we have to kind of like build this along with folks. So that's one area. The other one where we are starting to experiment and again like learning with the public is what we think of as recommendations. The idea being there are people, many more millions of people, who don't have this exact stock or crypto in mind. They're not racing to buy that stock or crypto. They know they have to invest. Actually, honestly, a lot of friends of mine too are in the same situation. They're smart, they know they need to invest, but they don't exactly know what. And so we're trying to say, okay, how can we actually build products that help them there as well?
And how do you explain that to regulators? There's been talk over things like gamification. I know Robinhood doesn't have this anymore, but at the time the confetti was something that people really zeroed in on as an issue. It seems like things like stock recommendations, while customers might want that, regulators might have questions over how safe it is. How are you describing some of these products that customers might want to the regulators who may be a little bit more cautious?
Actually, in these cases, as with any of these other products that we've rolled out, we've worked really closely with regulators. And in a sense, they want the same thing that we do, which is like safety and access to customers. And financial inclusion is a goal for the regulators as well. So I think for us, the way I think about this is accessible design lifts all boats. At the same time, making sure that there are guardrails and education. So one of the things, for example, we talked with regulators about, and they love this, is this idea of in-context information. So you're looking at the stock detail page and you look at PE ratio or market cap. Like you should be able to just instantly say, what is this? Or get some context without you having to, read tomes of these pages outside and go outside the app. And this is the kind of stuff where there's a yes and in all of these cases where we want to build safety as well as like access.
The old improv, yes.
Yes, exactly. Oh, yeah, exactly.
I love that. That's like a Tina Fey thing. Well,
improv.
We could go into a whole improv conversation too. Really interesting. I mean, mobile also harkens back to that. That's sort of how Robinhood was built on mobile.
Yep.
That's been one of the reasons too, that some regulators have pushed back. Although Robinhood did win a case in Massachusetts over gamification and that whole issue. Can you sort of walk us through that, I guess, victory on the side of Robinhood? Or what did that feel like to be on the other side of that whole issue?
I'm the chief product officer. We have a chief legal officer, Dan, who you know very well. And he and the legal team have been really hard at work with regulators and obviously working alongside them to say where are ways where we can bring folks along, both customers and regulators. You'll see us do a lot more of that, both on brokerage and crypto.
And it's been interesting too, you've got the role of Chief Product Officer needing to build innovating, exciting things that keep people engaged, but also deal with traditional finance. So it's an interesting juxtaposition for you. I
think it's, again, like to quote my 3-month stint at improv years ago in college years, I think it is a yes and, because what we strongly believe is that you want intuitive, accessible design. A lot of times, finance is made to be complex and intimidating to keep people out. So I think every time you kind of push the economic barrier, every time you push the experience barrier, when you think about, for me, it's like the design is like pulling down the experience barrier. And today, for example, you don't think twice about being able to book travel on your phone. And for many people, this is the main device that they have. This is the only device. It's actually sometimes I feel, I know you're not saying that, but sometimes you hear things like, oh my God, how can you be mobile first? I'm like, that's the only device millions and billions of people have. So it's patronizing. It's almost like a privilege to be able to say, well, why can't you have like this, right? In some sense, this is the only device people have and can afford, but they should have a shot at investing. Right?
That's interesting. Yeah, not everybody has 5 devices to choose from on which to trade.
That was the issue, right? You had a few people at the Bloomberg terminal.
Yeah.
No more smart, no more kind of hungry for to own their own financial future.
Yeah.
And I think this is that's at the core of it, this financial inclusion.
Right.
oftentimes those are words, but what does it mean? What does it reflect in a product? It means this, right? It means being able to access it on a phone, being able to not pay fees, right? That's the other thing. You're seeing that even in crypto, Kate, like where the fees are really too damn high, right? And they add up because we see our customers do a recurring buys, right? They're buying into Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. And one time, okay, you pay a fee. But as you add it up over time, it just gets too exorbitant.
Fees have been a big discussion in the crypto industry, at least on the trading side and the sort of brokerage side. Robinhood was the first in the traditional brokerage industry for equities to go to zero. Do you predict the same thing playing out when it comes to crypto exchanges?
I think for one, I do think that what we are doing, what we did in the equities and stock market, we plan and we continue to do the same on the crypto side. There's no reason why institutional investors and hedge funds should get like a lot better deal, whether it's crypto or traditional brokerage. And you'll see us push a lot more on that front. And right now there's so much opacity on this front that like folks are probably not, customers are not probably realizing that. And second, I think that there are a lot more people outside of the gates here, right? And the ethos of crypto should actually like be around democratizing finance for all, which is obviously like our mission.
What about the progress on becoming sort of the single money app? I think that's how Robinhood describes it, but a lot of fintechs, we've had Square announce some Bitcoin products this morning. There's a lot of fintechs out there trying to offer the same thing. Why does Robinhood have an edge? You know, if it does, what are you seeing in terms of what the customer wants on Robinhood?
I think less about kind of like forcing people to one app versus the other, because I think the reality is that customers should use the products that best solve that problem. For me, one of the ways I think about Robinhood is that we want to be the best place for anybody and everybody to be an investor. Now, oftentimes that's seen as just as trading or investing. That means we'll build products like retirement, we'll build products like recurring and stock trading and crypto, but we'll also build products that are about other parts of your financial life. And we launched the Robinhood Cash Card, which basically turns spending into investing. So to me, like one of the North Star for Robinhood is investing. How do you kind of help people? Because that's the ultimate way to own your financial future. And it's not about whether like, you know, all these things are shoved into one single app versus the other. It is for us, for our North Star, unlike many other competitors, is how do you help people own their financial future? And we think investing is the way to do it longer term.
Got it. Really interesting. What about, I mean, you mentioned the cash card. There are some traditional financial products that Robinhood is starting to offer. How are you making those more interesting maybe than your traditional banking product? I don't think of that as always the most exciting product to use. As a chief product officer, what are you doing differently when it comes to design?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this cash card is a great example. Increasing number of people are debit primary, a lot of the younger generation, partly because they don't have a shot at building credit, partly because they want to control their cash flows and are wary of like many of these companies that have hidden fees and asterisks around like the conditions. And so in this case, again, like we're mobile first, the design, both of the physical card as well as the experience, like simple things, like you should be able to lock your card from within the app. This is not something that like would come up in a traditional sense.
Lock your cards, so like you don't have to call.
Like, yeah, you don't have to like wait in line. You can just like control that from the app. You have multi-factor authentication. You also instantly know when a card is charged, so you have a loop back. You also have alerts to say, hey, like your card is like showing up in 3,000 miles away. Those are all like just ways that design can help. But the other big thing is connecting spending with investing. Today, those two things are isolated, right? Because most of the spending products are just around spending. They don't let you, the business models don't allow you to kind of like help customers to say, well, can we turn your spare change into crypto? Right. We do that because we want you to kind of actually have that on-ramp to investing.
Interesting. And Cash App announced something similar this morning. It says, I think you guys did have that first.
Yeah, in terms of where you can say, look, let's split your paycheck and turn some of it into Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency or stocks, for that matter.
The regulatory side, there's been a lot of action in DC when it comes to crypto, big executive order. Is there anything from a product and building side that you need to see out of Washington on the crypto side before you can launch a product? Is there anything that you can't do because there's not enough regulatory clarity?
I think on crypto, just like on the brokerage side, we are going to make sure that whatever products we launch are safe for our customers. And so we're in constant communication with the regulators. We're working alongside them in many of these cases. And the products that we are launching, like whether it be the Robinhood Cash Card or the ones that we talked about this morning with the Lightning Network, all of these are done in a way that are beneficial to customers. Now, there's a broader conversation around crypto and how do we kind of like build products that are even more useful for customers at the same time with guardrails, and we are participants in that conversation.
Got it. And last question, so fintech companies and a lot of the high growth tech stocks that we cover at CNBC have not had a great year, underperformed at least NASDAQ and S&P. How is that affecting morale at Robinhood? Have you had a hard time hiring, and what are you telling some of the younger employees where it might be their first job, it might be their first IPO? What is sort of the morale like, and how are you sort of helping fellow employees through that?
Kate, having lived through 2001 and 2008, and having worked in like companies that are world changing, the things that I tell my team and like the company are, how do you keep your eyes on the prize, which is what's the mission, and how any of these things takes many, many years. Keep the eye on the prize for the long term in terms of like building products that change the world. That's the currency, that's kind of the work that you're meant for. And to be honest, I think the teams are actually really excited about this idea of like, how can you have like more and more people have a shot at owning their financial future? Now, that means like step by step, building things one on top of the other, and you're seeing by the second wave of products from Robinhood. They'll take time to grow, but we're excited, we're here.
What should we expect on the product side when it comes to crypto versus traditional finance? Is there sort of a 50-50 split, or can you tell us sort of what to expect? Is it going to be weighted towards crypto versus the more traditional banking world?
It's an interesting question. The way we've been thinking about it is, I call internally our approach being embedded crypto, meaning that we're definitely going to be crypto-centric in what we build. We think there's a huge potential in future, but I think the potential and the angle we are taking versus a pure crypto company or a pure traditional financial services company who are trying to sprinkle crypto on top is that we are going to kind of like make sure that we can build crypto in a much more native way into products that people know already. Like, people know a debit card. Now, how do you actually start to get like crypto to work in that case? People know retirement, people know other products. How do you kind of start to get recurring dollar cost averaging is a concept that people know on equity side. Turns out like it's as popular on the crypto side. In fact, I just announced this morning that Bitcoin is the top recurring by asset, more than Tesla, more than Apple. Right?
Interesting. Wow.
Which is a very intuitive way of like for many more people to get exposure to crypto without going deep down the rabbit hole and like, magical incantations of hexadecimal addresses.